Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Craydon. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a beautiful day here on the outskirts of Ottawa. So much happening in the House of Commons. Lots of material to deal with this morning. Thank you for joining us as we do that. We'll be back momentarily. Is the House of Commons suspended or not? This is the question of the hour.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
So, last night, Andrew Scheer said the House of Commons has been suspended. Suspended from debate, at least. Suspended from talking about anything except the Green Slush Fund. It's not clear because the House hasn't opened yet. It's 8:30 here. It's 8:34. The House will be opening at 10. I'm looking at the parliamentary calendar this morning and I'm seeing business of the House. We're going to watch a video in a minute from Andrew Scheer where he's saying, and he's a former speaker, so he understands the parlance of the speaker and what the speaker's decision was, which apparently sounds like they want to limit discussion at the very least to the Green Slush Fund. Now, what you're saying, what is the Green Slush Fund? We've talked about it before. The long name for the Sustainable Development Technology Canada, SDTC. The Conservatives dubbed it the Green Slush Fund because in committee, they discovered that there have been hundreds, literally hundreds of millions of dollars passing through this group, this organization. It's unaccountable. And that the Liberals have been giving this money to friends of the Liberal government. Anybody with a green energy project comes up and says, hey, I got a great idea. Here's 10 million bucks. This is what the Green Slush Fund is all about. Now, all of these documents have been examined not by the opposition, but by the Auditor General. She doesn't want the unredacted documents to be seen by all of Parliament or the RCMP. And this is what the crux of this issue is right now. Have a look at this. The House of Commons voted to send the unredacted, the uncensored documents to the RCMP. In doing so, they would have to be tabled in the House. So this is a bit of a ruse to get the documents public. And this is extremely important. And the Speaker, I couldn't believe this. The Speaker has ruled in the favor of the House of Commons. Now we'll talk about this in a minute. Is this part of Liberal strategy? Is the Speaker playing into the hands of Justin Trudeau in this? And it's interesting to say because Trudeau is fighting first and foremost for his political survival. Now, does he want the House to be suspended? Does he want to then prorogue Parliament so he can fight for his political survival and not face a non-confidence motion now that the NDP and the Bloc are slowly getting on the side of the Conservatives? Because this is a gradual process, but we could have another third non-confidence vote in the next 3 weeks, which could go towards the Conservative side, downfall of the government. Not, though, if Parliament is suspended, except talking about anything except the Green Slush Fund, or if Trudeau prorogues Parliament. The good news about proroguing Parliament, of course, and if I'm going too fast for you, I'm trying to get this all in. The good news is that the legislation that we're facing, and this is horrible legislation, Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, the Censorship Bill, the Thought Crimes Bill, would be turned to dust. Bill C-293, the Vegan Bill, which would make a health czar responsible for regulating food during any pandemic and could outlaw and ban meat products. That bill would disappear. So would the Charlie Angus bill to criminalize promotion of the oil industry. And there's a number of other very dangerous pieces of legislation in front of the Commons, which would be completely obliterated if the House is prorogued. Now let's listen to Andrew Scheer here, because remember, Andrew is a former speaker, so he understands the process better than most MPs ever will, because you really have to be in the speaker's shoes to understand how the system works. Now, I've often told you, I worked on Parliament Hill for 8 years. So I understand the parliamentary system very well, but you never understand it as well as somebody who's in the center of the process, as Andrew Scheer is. And so I've been through parliaments being suspended. I've been through being prorogued. If Parliament is suspended right now, this would really be an historical first as far as I could tell this morning. Parliaments have been prorogued by Stephen Harper. Parliaments have been prorogued by Liberals and Conservatives over the years. It's not that uncommon. But suspension without proroguing? Very, very unusual. So let's listen to Andrew Scheer.
After 9 years, Justin Trudeau has shown that he's not worth the cost or the corruption. The Speaker has just recently ruled that all House business, all government business must be put aside while members of Parliament consider Liberal corruption. First, we had the case of the Green Slush Fund, the SDTC fund, where the Auditor General found over $330 million funneled to Liberal insiders' own businesses. She found massive conflicts of interest. Basically, these Liberal-appointed board members who made the decision as to which companies got money, taxpayers' money, from this fund, were funneling that money to their own businesses or to the businesses of their close friends. So the Auditor General has blown the whistle on that, yet the government refuses to hand over the documents to the RCMP. The House of Commons passed a production order demanding that all documents, all information that the Auditor General uncovered, plus any documents that might exist in any government department related to this scandal, be handed over to the RCMP. The government is refusing, and as a result, the House will be seized with this corruption matter until they hand over the documents. And then we have the case of the other Randy, where a senior Trudeau minister is alleged to have been sitting around the cabinet table while also involved in his own business's affairs. His business partner was summoned before a committee and refused to disclose all the information, refused to name who the other Randy is, refused to hand over all the documents and answer the questions that were put to him. And as a result, the House is seized with that motion as well. So what we're saying today is that the government will not be able to, the House will be staying on these corruption matters until the Liberals hand over all the documents to the RCMP. While Canadians are suffering with the cost of living crisis that Justin Trudeau caused with his runaway inflation, while millions of Canadians are visiting a food bank for the first time and young Canadians are giving up on the dream of home ownership as housing costs have doubled under the NDP Liberal government, it's clear once again that the Liberals will always stop and enrich their friends while they impoverish Canadians.
Like what's this going to look like, and how long is this going to go on?
So the Speaker has ruled that the parliamentary that Parliament's rules were broken in this Liberal cover-up. The House of Commons demanded these documents be sent to the RCMP so that the RCMP can determine whether or not there are criminal charges warranted because of this corruption. The government refused to comply with this long-standing power that Parliament has to hold governments to account, and by doing so, the Speaker has now ruled that all government business must be put aside until the House deals with this corruption motion. It's really up to the government to determine how long that will take, but it's clear that they're willing to go to extreme lengths to cover up their corruption, that they're willing to put the business of Parliament off to the side just to protect Liberal insiders. Liberal-friendly appointees to this board funneled money to their own companies. That's taxpayers' money. And while Canadians are paying higher carbon taxes, higher prices at the grocery store, higher mortgage costs with high interest rates, Liberal insiders stopped and enriched themselves. It's never been so good to be a Liberal insider. It's never been so tough to be a hardworking Canadian.
All right, we're going to leave it at that because it seems clear from the statement that no, the MPs are not all going home. The Parliament will still be in session, but apparently the business should be limited to discussing, as Andrew Scheer says, Liberal corruption. That's not what the Speaker said. Obviously, he talked about to resolve this matter about the documents relating to the Sustainable Development Technology Canada group or the Green Slush Fund. So whether that's going to happen today, I just looked at the calendar. And then we've got new business. There's another private member's bill up. So we'll see what happens when the Speaker arrives and the House opens at 10 o'clock this morning. And the question period will be very interesting. So, but this is how arrogant Justin Trudeau is about this. And like I say, don't for a minute think he's not wondering, how can I exploit this situation for my own political gain?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You, Mr. Speaker, have said that this Prime Minister is violating the rules of the House by refusing to hand over SDTC documents on a corporate welfare scandal of $400 million that the Auditor General says involved 186 conflict of interest, where bureaucrats, top officials in this Liberal government, were giving millions of dollars to their own companies. Will the Prime Minister hand over the information to the police? And if not, what's he got to hide?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader just mentioned both the police and the Auditor General. Let me say what they have said. Both the RCMP and the Auditor General have raised concerns about how this motion jeopardizes their independence in serving Canadians. The Conservative Party wants to play politics with Canadians' charter rights.
Just stop there, Justin boy. What in the hell does that have to do with Canadians' charter rights? Since when is the Canadian charter right about the RCMP and the Auditor General's independence? This guy plays fast and loose, not just with the truth, but with verbiage and words. That is a completely meaningless statement to make. It's a completely stupid statement to make, but it doesn't even make any kind of sense politically. To suggest that this is a violation of charter rights to know the truth about how many millions of hundreds of millions of dollars were wasted, were corruptly given to friends of the Trudeau government, that's a violation of charter rights. This man just doesn't think. He really believes there's enough Canadians out there stupid enough to buy into this statement that this has anything to do with the Charter of Rights. I think Poilievre's response here is very, very apropos.
We will not support that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So his idea of a charter right is that you have the right as a top government executive to take $400 million of other people's money and give it to your own company and then hide the criminal evidence from the police. Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadians have the charter right to know where their money went. So will the Prime Minister accept your order and the vote of this House to turn over the documents to the police so that we can put the bad guys in jail and get back the money that was stolen?
Excellent answer. This is about your charter rights, not Justin Trudeau's supposed charter rights. So there's the House agenda for today, Thursday, October 3rd. Now, clearly the House is not suspended, and it looks like there's other business on the docket. Now, this is what we need to know, what actually transpires today, and we will be following this story throughout the day. And I find this absolutely fascinating that perhaps the people who write the calendar just simply haven't caught up with reality. Things are moving so fast right now, people. I have never seen in the 35 years I've been watching Parliament. I've watched it since I was very young, actually. I've never seen Parliament move this fast. And I've never seen a government try so desperately to stay in power. You can see the Trudeau government is teetering. It's quite obvious the Trudeau government is teetering on the brink of destruction. There have been so many scandals in the past that they've skirted, they've walked away from. It's like there's these tiger traps in front of them, and they just walk around them every time, and they just don't fall in. And despite the fact that they deserve to fall in, they are saved every time by the complete apathy of the law and order facilities in this country, namely the RCMP, by the apathy of parliamentary authorities, that they are completely immune. I mean, Trudeau has been Teflon to these scandals, whether they're personal, the blackface scandal, or whether it's been very public scandals about what his government has done, the corrupt way his government has acted. And he's managed to get away from it. It's like it's not just this SDTC scandal. It's not just the Green Slush Fund that's catching up to Justin Trudeau. It's 9 years of heinous corruption, of egregious corruption, is catching up to this man, is catching up to this government. This is what we're witnessing right now. This is why the government is teetering on the brink of destruction. And we'll have to keep watching every day to see if the revelation of how bad the Green Slush Fund is and was comes out. Now, I want to get on to another issue before we run out of time here this morning. I know this is something dear to your heart. Thank God for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who has followed through on her promise of parental rights in Alberta. I'm going to play a video in a second, and then I'm going to show you the reaction from people who claim to love children. And if you think a 10-year-old should be getting a sex change operation on a whim because he or she wakes up one day and says, I really feel like I'm not the same sex today, I want to have my sex change operation. If you think people who support that love children, they don't. They hate children. They love woke ideology. That's what those people are all about. This is common sense politics. This is common sense thinking. The parents have rights over the children, not the state, not the classroom, not the teachers, not the school board, not even the government. No, parents. And children should not be subject to the whims of woke ideologists who think they are the ones who know best for children. Now, I applaud Danielle Smith for doing this. And we're going to show you the video, and then we're going to show you the reaction from the usual suspects who hate children.
Go over some of the specifics to expect in the legislation. Firstly, licensed Alberta doctors will be prohibited from performing gender assignment surgeries on youth under the age of 18 in Alberta. Puberty blockers and hormone therapies for the purpose of gender reassignment for minors under the age of 16 will also be prohibited unless a minor has already commenced their treatment at this time. For 16 and 17-year-olds wishing to proceed with puberty blockers or other hormone therapies for the purpose of gender reassignment, they may do so only if they have parental, psychologist, and doctor approval. In our schools, the proposed legislation will now require parental notification and consent for a teacher or staff member to change a child's name or pronoun and publicly use that new name or pronoun in a classroom setting or school assembly. And to be clear, this does not mean reporting or outing a student for their private conversations with friends or teachers regarding their gender identity. For 16 or 17-year-olds who choose to alter their name or pronoun used in school, they may do so without parental consent, so long as parents are still notified in advance. In those extremely rare circumstances where a teacher feels that a child might be at risk should the parents be notified of a desired name or pronoun change, Alberta Education will provide a protocol to ensure the protection of that child throughout the parental notification process. I am convinced that parents, even those who may disagree with the decision of their child, will still love and care for that child no matter what choices they make. It would be wise for all of us to remember that, rather than questioning the love of parents and their paramount role as the primary caregivers and teachers of their children. In addition, the newly proposed legislation will require parental notification and a parental opt-in requirement for each instance a teacher intends to address issues or subject matter involving gender identity, sexual orientation, or human sexuality. Furthermore, the provision of resource materials or presentations to students related to these subjects in our K-12 schools must be approved by the Ministry of Education to ensure age appropriateness and relevance to school curriculum. And finally, as it pertains to women and girls in competitive sports, proposed legislation will be tabled that prohibits individuals born biologically male from competing against women and girls in competitive sporting competitions. This will apply to all competitive women's and girls' sports in all provincial sporting organizations, as well as in our schools and post-secondary competitive sporting divisions.
Thank God. This is common sense thinking. This is common sense policy. This is common sense politics. And anybody who's out there saying Danielle Smith didn't go far enough, maybe she didn't, but she's gone farther than most politicians in this country are prepared to do. And I applaud her for that. I applaud political courage. And she's already taking it on the nose for this from the usual suspects, from the usual idiots who really think they know best for your children. Uh-huh. Because what if you decide you want a sex change operation at 10? And a little later in life, you say, that was a horrible mistake I made. Pretty hard to detransition in this country because we really have enshrined this mythological gender affirming care as a basis of healthcare. It's not healthcare, it's mutilation. There is no such thing as gender affirming care. It's a euphemism for destruction. And this is the woman for diversification, or what the minister of diversification. And she's Marcy Yen. Premier Smith is doubling down on her plans to target trans youth. Yeah, there's just millions of these trans youth waiting to have sex change operations at 10. And this is harmful if they don't get a sex change operation. These people are out of their minds. And the idiot journalists who are out there saying, oh, this is harmful to kids. I read one this morning. I'm not even going to mention this idiot's name, but saying that somehow this will put kids in general in harm's way. That this is bad for kids because it's going to put their lives at risk because they can't have sex change operate. That is irresponsible. That is lunatic. That is completely nonsensical. And she says this conversation is only for adults. Yeah, it is. Just like the conversation about whether or not you should be driving a car at 10 years old is a conversation for adults. We don't ask 10-year-olds, do you think you should be driving a car, Johnny? Yeah, I do. Oh, okay. That's fine. We'll change all the laws because the 10-year-old says so. How about if Johnny says, I think I should go to a liquor store and buy alcohol at 10? Well, that's the conversation we reserve for adults too. So is permanently, in some cases, mutilating a child's body because the 10-year-old thinks they have the knowledge to make that decision. They think they have the life experience to make that decision, and they're going to regret that maybe in 4 months. But I love this. Here's our euthanasia czar, Mark Holland. This is the man who's so adept at expanding our euthanasia law in this country. So it includes more and more Canadians that the Liberal government can euthanize. And Mark, of course, who's always having the nervous breakdown.
What are you doing in here?
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yes, Mark is saying, I am concerned by Premier Smith's announcement regarding gender-affirming care in Alberta. Healthcare decisions, including gender-affirming care, which is a nonsense word, should be made between families and their doctors. It's exactly what she's doing, you idiot. You're the one who wants the government to decide. You're the one who wants the school and the teachers, the school board to decide. You're the one, like Justin Trudeau, who thinks the state should be raising our children. And look at the response here. All of the countries in Europe are coming around to the realization that children should not be making decisions about having sex change operations or taking puberty blockers. This is the trend in the world today. This common sense is finally coming back. in some quarters, to some politicians' minds. That's the reality today. Premier Danielle Smith is on the trending line. She is in agreement with what's happening in the world today. Mark Holland and Justin Trudeau and Marcy Yang are not. They are opposing common sense. They are opposing science, as they love to say. They are at odds with not just parents, but the health and the safety of children in Canada. They are endangering the safety of children in Canada. In fact, it's Holland and it's Trudeau and it's and it's all of these people who want sex change operations for little children who are putting the lives of Canadian children at risk. Those are the facts, people. And that's what we're up against in terms of the feeble opposition to what Danielle Smith is doing in Alberta. So it's a very exciting day. We're going to keep our eyes on whether or not Parliament is limited to debating Liberal corruption, as Andrew Scheer told us earlier. And we'll see if there's any more fallout from Danielle Smith's courageous decision to follow through on her promise to respect parental rights and to stop the mutilation of children. I applaud her for this, as I said. Thanks for watching today, folks. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We might join you again later if there's more news from the House of Commons. And there's always something happening, and I appreciate you being here. And have a look at our store. I tell you, I didn't mention it today. Have a look at our Free Canadian t-shirt. I am a Canadian, a free Canadian. Buy one while you still can. Have a look at the merchandise. And we will be back tomorrow with all of the news that you need to know, because I want us all to continue to resolve to resist.